Hi there, thanks for tuning into my video. So in this video I'm going to look at 20 plus things that are wrong with the azimuthal equidistant flat earth map. That's this map here, which I like to refer to as Globe 2.0. First of all, please note that this is not going to be a flat earth debunking video. The earth is most certainly flat, as there's many proofs for that, curvature and things. I'm not going to get into that here. Although I do want to qualify myself first, just so you have a reason to watch this video. Like, who are you listening to? So first of all, I'm the writer of a blog, thenarrowgateweb.com. Goes into many subjects. I cover, I'll show you here, table of contents. Gone through many subjects. The aim of my blog is to lead people to the truth in a coherent and logical way with some humor. And since this is a flat earth video, I thought I'd show flat earthers that I've covered a little bit of stuff here on the occult, Capitol Hill, etc., etc., magnetism. And then I've covered, got into the flat earth here a little bit, the circle model, which is the one I'll be debunking. Since writing this, I've moved on from it to a model that I'll discuss in another video. But this video is mainly just to show what's wrong with this map here. So just to qualify, you can see, I am familiar with this map. I've written about it, debunked, showed the lack of curvature, even derived in this blog post, derived the curvature formula from first principles using Pythagoras' theorem. You can go check that out if you want. I showed how the sun would work on this circle model. Everything from, the distance, the size, how the seasons and time zones work, how the 24-hour sunlight in Antarctica and Arctic is supposed to work, the solar analemma, the moon phases, tides, etc. Also showed how, what's wrong with the spinning ball. Antarctica, covered that a lot in 2 posts, flights as well. Debunked gravity and relativity in this post, and also the space lie in this post here. Covered the alien deception a little bit, that's another story. Went into geometry and synchronicity, and lastly covered the stars as well. So that's just to qualify. I mean, I am familiar with the circle model. You can check out my blog post here, just follow the links here, and you can see I've come to understand that it's wrong, even though I wrote about it before. For anyone who's still struggling to get past the globe, it might be a good idea to read these posts still, even though they are the circle model. A lot of the material is still very relevant to understanding why the globe is wrong. So for example, gravity, relativity, a lot of the stuff with why the globe is wrong here, why it's not a ball. Some of the stuff with the sun, I mean, it's proving that the sun isn't 93 million miles away. Anyway, about me a little bit. So I'm the author of this page. My motivations for writing and studying. I'm not out to prove anything. I'm just looking for the truth. And I think this quote very much sums up my research. So I believe in evidence. I believe in observation, measurement, and reasoning confirmed by independent observers. I'll believe anything, no matter how wild and ridiculous, if there is evidence for it. The wilder and more ridiculous something is, however, the firmer and more solid the evidence will have to be. So I did believe in this model before, but I saw some evidence and moved on from it. I am a qualified engineer by education. This paper means nothing to me right now, but for anyone who wonders if I'm familiar with a globe and I haven't understood it, I mean, I hope this shows clearly that I've been through the indoctrination system, and I know how this globe, all that Newtonian physics is supposed to work. My approach is very simple. Truth is simple, very simple, so simple that a child can understand it. In fact, so simple that only a child can understand it. Unless you become a child again, you will not be able to understand it. I ask a lot of very simple, stupid questions and just look for simple answers, and I try to present things as coherently and clearly as I can. Lastly, the truth is like a lion. You don't have to defend it. Let it loose and it'll defend itself. I'm not here to argue. This is just information. So, just soak it in. And so, in my introduction, just to set the stage a little bit, I wanted to show this meme here. What if I told you your beliefs don't make you a free thinker? The ability to change your beliefs based on new information does. If you're someone who believes ardently in this circle model, I ask you to just sit back, consider all the information I'm going to present, and then make up your mind once you've listened to everything. I'm not out to argue again. I'm just going to show you some information, and as a free thinker, you can make up your own mind with this information. Secondly, just to set the stage a little bit, I want to show you the quote by Sun Tzu. All warfare is based on deception. Therefore, when capable, feign incapacity. When active, inactivity. When near, make it appear that you are far away. When far away, that you are to lure him. Feign disorder and strike him. When he concentrates, prepare against him. Where he is strong, avoid him. Anger his general and confuse him. Pretend inferiority and encourage his arrogance. So this is very much what's been done with the circle model. Give your opponent the impression that they are closer than they really are. We've all found the Earth is flat, but we've been given this model, and we think that we're closer to the truth than we really are when we have this model. When we get past this model and the deception of it, there are so many more awesome truths to find, and this is what they're really gatekeeping. The flat Earth, to me, it's a gate. It's not an ultimate truth. It's just the truth to learn and then move on. And I'll be discussing some of that stuff in future videos. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into this. So first of all, I'll cover the sun, 8 or 9 points. So the first point is considering the speed of the sun. So we're given these models. The Tropic of Cancer, the sun moves around here in the northern summertime, and then it spirals out and travels around the Tropic of Capricorn in the winter. So that looks very nice. But when we look at the numbers, we're given the circumferences, or the distance, what's called the radius of the Tropic of Capricorn and Tropic of Cancer right here. And using the formula for a circle, which is given right here, circumference of a circle is 2 pi times radius. So we have the radius of each of these lines, tropics, equator, and Capricorn. So we can find out the circumference just by some simple calculations. I did these in Excel for myself. Pretty straightforward. It's just radius times 2 times pi will give you circumference, and then you have the formula for speed. Speed equals distance times time, or divided by time. So you take circumference divided by time, and you get a speed in kilometers per hour. So the speed that we get is around about 2,000 kilometers per hour at the Tropic of Cancer, 2,700 around the equator, and over 3,000, around 3,300 at the Tropic of Capricorn. Let me get that up. So that's around 2,000 here and 3,300 here. When we do the math, just dividing this number 3,300 by 1,936, we get a change of 70%. And if you have observed the sun in the sky, we never notice that the sun changes speed between winter and summer at 70% change, at that big a change. It seems fairly consistent speed. So this idea that the sun moves in this circle here in the summer, and a wider arch or circle in the winter, is wrong. Doesn't match up with what we can observe. So second point, moving on. We'll often see the sun appearing under clouds. A quick Google search will show that. You see there's a video of a pilot here. He's flying above the clouds, and he sees the sun under the clouds. There's numerous videos like this. Lots of pictures. Sun's under the clouds, behind the clouds, under the clouds there again, behind the clouds. I mean, in the circle model, the sun is supposed to be 3,000 miles up, and circling round and round, but that's clearly not the case. These airplanes are not flying at 3,000 miles up; they're flying at 38,000 feet, more or less. So you can see that the sun is, in this video here, where the sun is below the clouds, we can see that the sun is clearly below 34,000 feet, probably even below 30,000 feet. So this idea that the sun is circling above 3,000 miles is, it's wrong. We can see that here. We're given, by some of the prominent circle flat earthers, we're told that there's some sort of atmospheric lensing or refraction going on to put the sun below the clouds, and sunlight under the clouds. But that's not right. We can see here that the sun is below the clouds. Also, another thing is to consider how fast, going back here, how fast 3,000 kilometers per hour is. If we 3,000 kilometers per hour. Speed of a fighter jet. If we compare it to things, a fighter jet travels at 2,500 kilometers per hour. So this is what we're talking about. When you see a fighter jet flying at the level of the clouds, it looks it looks super fast. Whereas when you see the sun moving, here, it looks almost stationary. It's obviously not moving at 3,000 miles per hour or kilometers per hour. So there's just numerous anomalies here with the maths. I mean, I'm not even stating opinion. This is simply maths. So thirdly, get into this. So the third proof is that the sun rises in the southeast in the southern hemisphere. This is more or less what you see when you're in Chile. Same in Australia. Sun rises in the southeast. And obviously if the sun on the circle is coming from, traveling in a circle that's coming from the northeast for Australia, that's just not what they see down under, so as they say. Same in Chile. I mean, the reason why this works as a deception is because most of the world's population live in the northern hemisphere, or so-called hemisphere. So 90% of the world's population is north of the equator. So there's a very good chance that the majority of the flat Earth community will support the north-centric azimuthal equidistant model based on observations, because we'll see the sun coming from, in the US you'll see it coming from a slightly northern, it changes angle, so it makes some sense in the northern hemisphere, but it falls apart completely in the south. So when in reality people south of the equator will observe south concentric stars, moon and sun. The sun appears concentric to the south during the North's winter months. The official model is wrong. I don't know about yeah, anyway, I'll get into the correct one later, but this is debunking this circle. I mean, it doesn't work. It obviously doesn't work. Sun rises here. It's not compatible with this map. Yeah. So fourth point has to do with eclipses. Now we're told by flat earthers that this is the way it happens. The sun moves around, comes around, and then overlaps perfectly with the moon. Now, the problem with this is that eclipses, if this was the actual mechanism for it, it should happen way more often than it does. And, the last total eclipse was in 1979. This should happen every year. So this just doesn't compute. Secondly, to do with eclipses, you'll notice here how they show the sky going black, when the sun overlaps. But that, when we look at the flat Earth dome, here, if the sun, if the moon's blocking it, there should still be light from behind. This should still be light. The sun is still inside this place. So, I mean, the fact that the sky goes dark when there's an eclipse suggests that there's the sun is outside some sort of sky and getting projected in. If there's something getting blocked to block all light, because it literally just goes completely dark. I mean, you look at solar eclipses. They're completely dark. The sky just it gets dark, and that's just not what that just it's not compatible with this model again. The sky should remain blue, but even though the sun should be like this, a black disk around the sun, but then the sky should still be blue if the sun is inside dome. So that idea. So another point with the eclipses, I just want to make sure, make it clear, eclipses are, it's not solid objects, one getting in front of the other like we're told in the flat Earth. It's a magnetic effect. So two magnetic fields merging to one, the reciprocating precessional hyperboloids become one solid ring of light. This is something that can be replicated, scientifically. Scientific method, observation, measurement, and repetition. It's going to be replicated in the lab, and this is exactly the effect we see. So here we have another one. When two electromagnetic vectors combine inertia in counterspace, it leaves a ring of light. I mean, I'm not an expert on this stuff, but if you watch people like Ken Wheeler on YouTube, Theory Apophysis is his channel. You can watch this stuff. I mean, it's obviously magnetic. Someone filmed the eclipse while it was going on from above the clouds, or this was from an airplane. I mean, it's not what we're told. The moon is not involved in blocking the sun. It's something completely different, because you can see the moon here and the sun. It's not. It's not what we're told. Yeah, I mean, another example of why this is magnetic. I mean, this is what you get when you put a magnet on an LCD screen. I'll get into the television set in another post because it's very interesting. Has to do with the sky, but this is magnetic. It's not a solid disk. It's moon getting in front of the sun. It's something completely different. So I mean, this eclipse thing goes to show that the sun isn't inside the dome, as we're told. Now another thing, point 6 I want to bring up is the idea of 24-hour sunlight in Antarctica. This is something I've covered. Maybe I should show that. So the 24-hour sunlight in Antarctica is something that I showed how it would work on the circle. Theoretically how it could work. I discussed that in my blog, but it kind of falls down on its face when you consider that in Chile here, when you check out the time zone, they get 7 hours of night and dark at the same time that we're supposed to have 24-hour sunlight down here. I mean, you don't have several hours of nighttime, 7 hours of nighttime down here at the same time that just a few miles away you have 24-hour sunlight. That doesn't work. So this 24-hour sunlight, I mean, a lot of these videos have been shown to be loops, to be photoshopped, to be shown to be layered. I mean, there's a lot of videos on that on YouTube, so I won't waste your time with that. But you can check that out for yourselves. 24-hour sunlight around this disk. I mean, it's fake. And also another point, which I also covered in my blog around here. With the journeys of these guys here, Captain James Cook, James Clark Ross, Ranulph Fiennes, Amundsen and Scott. These are all Freemasons. What they've written in their journals about their distances, 60,000 miles around the ice wall and stuff. We shouldn't trust any of this. I also discussed in this blog post Admiral Byrd, and if you watch his interview here in front of this map, I mean, this is a psyop. They want you to believe in this map, and they put him out here to talk about a landmass, that's unexplored. And if you watch this interview, you'll see him checking his notes all the time. He'll be looking off screen all the time. All the questions asked by the interviewers are scripted. I mean, it's a complete scripted affair, that whole interview. And sitting in front of this map, I mean, it's all made to steer the narrative for flat earthers towards this map. Remember this guy, as I've shown in this blog post, Another Brick in the Wall Part 2. He is a Freemason, 33rd degree. There's some details there. You can also find them on Google if you search for him and Freemason. So all this stuff with Antarctica and ice ring and explorers sailing around and stuff. I mean, those are all of these guys are Freemasons, and they have different agendas. Obviously, as anyone who's researched these subjects is already well aware. So the Antarctica sun is not possible. Another thing. Point 7 is the solar analemma. So we're told that in the autumn the sun is at its high. Solar analemma is the point where the sun is at its highest position on a given day. So we're told that the sun's highest position in the autumn is up here, and in the spring it'll be down here. So February, March, and here we have September, October. So the problem with this is that when we look at sun charts, solar, let's take a look. Solar chart, solar daylight chart. When we take a look at things like this, the amount of daylight in October and February, or the heat, the temperatures are very similar. Yet when we look at this, the sun is much lower in the spring than it is in the autumn, and it just doesn't match up. You have the same temperature in both of these times, yet the sun is much higher in one place than the other. I mean, it's just a problem. Again, the analemma is something that I covered in my blog. Just for clarity, it's here in the 19th post. I think it's it's in there somewhere. Covered it in this blog post here. You can check that out. I mean, I'm not unfamiliar with how it works, how it's supposed to work on the globe, how it's supposed to work on the circle, but it's a complete sham. That's not how the sun behaves when you actually watch it in the sky. So that's point 7. Point 8. The sun travels straight at equinox. So there's a very easy proof of this. The Padmanabhaswamy temple in India. On the autumnal equinox, when the sun passes directly over the equator, there's this building here. You see, it'll pass in a straight line, and it passes right through this shows that the sun is traveling in a very straight line. And to state the obvious, the sun, if it's traveling in a circle, it would basically have to, be coming at like an angle, a circle. There's no way it could travel straight. So this temple right here is proof that this circle model is wrong. It's proof, because the sun never travels in a straight line on this circle model, and yet it travels in a straight line on the equinox here. So this temple itself is already proof. You don't need anything else, just use this temple. It's proof that the sun travels in a straight line at equinox, and that debunks the circle. If you search sunrise equinox, sunrise angle at equinox, even states here the sun will rise at 90 degrees instead of 270 degrees. If it's traveling in a straight line, that's completely impossible. For it to be arriving at 270 degrees or 90 degrees and leaving at 270 degrees and having gone in a straight line. If this is India over here, it would have gone a curved motion. So that temple debunks it. So the ninth point that I'll cover is the Southern Hemisphere flights. So this is something I've covered in my blog, post 22. Covered some air travel. Anyone who's looked at flat Earth will know, these flight paths, there's something going on with them. It's very odd that someone would fly from Chile up to North America to get to Australia instead of just flying straight across. So it doesn't work for the globe. Although the argument is that this is going in straight lines over North America like this, which it does make sense on the surface. I think stories like this are just propaganda to make us believe in locations. I think there's a lot more going on with flights, with airplanes, than we're told. I don't want to get into it in too much detail here, but I do recommend people to watch this playlist I've put together on my channel, Air Travel Fuel Hoax. Airplanes appear to be traveling with technology that's that we're not told about, using compressed air and atmospheric electricity. Engines are compressing air and using compressed air to power them. Very powerful technology, but I'll let you get into that yourselves. Maybe I'll make a video on that another day. But the point I want to make is that it's very easy with air travel, if you have technology that people aren't aware of, to manipulate locations, flight distances. We don't know how fast airplanes can actually travel. There's technologies like the winds. I'll get into that in another video. Enoch's winds that airplanes can travel with to go faster, slower, accelerating. But the point is that flights don't necessarily disprove this model, but it doesn't seem logical that these long distances would work in the time that we're given. For me, this has been a lingering, even though I posted about it here, it's been a lingering concern. I think there's something more going on with this map, the distances and things, and I'd be more interested to see studies with to do with shipping lanes, because those are than flights, because shipping lanes are far easier or far harder to fake with technology that we don't know about, like the airplanes. Boats have to go through the water, whereas airplanes can, obviously they're going through air, but they can go faster or slower. That's very easily manipulatable. So that's my points on flights. So moving on, I wanted to cover star spins. So first of all, stars, they're not what we're told. Anyone who's used a camera, I've used a Canon camera, very powerful, to look at the stars, and this is what you see when you zoom in on cameras. It looks like sound, light, vibrations, nothing like the solid objects we're told. So, I mean, most flat earthers who've looked at stars will have realized this already. But I think there's another element to it that, that's even more awesome, and that's to do with projection. What we see is simply a projection of something that's behind in the firmament. So going back to the eclipse, how we can see that the sun is actually getting blocked. The projection of the sun is getting blocked outside, which is why everything goes dark inside. Everything goes black. If the sun was actually inside getting blocked off by some disk, moon or something, then it would still stay light, but it gets completely blocked off, which suggests that it's getting projected from the outside, and that's the same with stars. So the star spins. What I wanted to cover. Well, first of all, I should probably mention in my blog here. I've covered stars in a lot of detail. So first, I'll go to that post actually to show you. First, what we've been told about the sun, gravity, thermonuclear fusion, what stars actually look like, frequency of the heavens. The parallax that just totally doesn't work on the globe. I introduced star trails, the astrolabe, and then I suggested how it might work if it was here's the post, bit of recap. So this is this is what we're told about the sun, which is a star, which is obviously not it's obviously not what's going on with the sun. I mean, anyone can see that. This is not what's going on with stars. We're given some nice CGI videos of just computerized graphics. And anyone can look with a camera, see these stars for themselves. This is what it looks like. A star, flashing lights. Nothing like what we're told. So I mean, I went through here how parallax works, how it's why it's wrong. Stars can't move in perfect unison. This idea I'll show to be wrong. So you can read through here if you like in your own time. But I did make an attempt here at explaining how using the sun. The 24-hour sunlight in Antarctica, which I thought might be plausible then, but I don't now. But I tried to make sense of it. If the sun's reflecting, then maybe the stars are reflecting as well, and that's what's happening. This video here shows how it would happen. But the problem with this is that you'd still have the same. You'd have one constellation on the astrolabe rotating here. And then in the south, you'd have the same one, but just reflected. Whereas what is actually going on is that we have two, the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere don't see the same stars. You have the southern crux in the south, and you have Polaris in the north. And that shows that it's not just a perfect reflection. It's not a 180-degree flip. It's a different constellation altogether, and that shows that it's not just being reflected off the dome. So that theory doesn't work. I tried my best to fit it in, make sense of it in this model, the dome, but it just doesn't work. When you get down to it, the point I wanted to make is that the star spins don't add up. They don't match. They can't match a dome where everything is moving one way. Even if they're reflected, it's still a different constellation, different stars. And this suggests that there's two axis points. It's not just a ring and northern pole. It's 2, 1, 2. I mean, sort of like this. There's two axis points. I'll get into this in more detail. Here's the equator you saw earlier, the building, the temple in India. So I mean, it suggests that there's two axis points, and so on that point, we have the Southern Lights. This is point 11 now. The Southern Lights exhibits the same effect as in the North, which suggests that there is the same magnetics in both locations. Unlike here, where you have different, it's a ring. It's not the same. So for those who aren't aware, the Southern Lights. This is what it looked like from Tasmania. Here we go. So filmed from Margate in Tasmania. It's down here, south of Australia. Looking down would be on this map, but the fact that the northern and southern lights are identical, pretty much, suggests that there's this it's an identical effect going on here. And I mean, I'll close that. So yeah, 2-axis points. Next point I want to get into, close this down, is the map. And so the first point is this map here. This is circumstantial evidence, obviously, but this is the map that we're supposed to, we're given here, and we have been given it. I mean, we were given it by the United Nations, which is the New World Order headquarters, essentially, the world government. And the curious thing about this map is that there's 33 sections, and anyone who's covered, in my blog, I've covered the 33 in a lot of detail. Well, anyway, 33. So this 33 here, Order Out of Chaos, it's the hoax code. In all of their false flags, they put 33 all over the place, in number plates, on bus numbers, on train numbers, you name it. Anyone you can check out my News by the Numbers, and you can find that in the header of my website. But 33 is a hoax code. So the fact that it's on this map tells you that this map is a hoax. It's wrong. And so for people to say that, look, this map is the correct map because it's on the UN map, it's false. It's there as a red herring. So that's that point. So the 13th point on my list is the Gleason map, which is the one here you see here, which has commonly become accepted as the map of flat Earth. There are a lot of problems with this, apart from the fact, the stuff that we talked about so far, but the actual map itself, the production of it, and the symbolism. I mean, anyone who follows my blog, News by the Numbers, will know how, I like to decode things by the numbers, and, symbolism, the language of Freemasonry is symbolism. They don't use languages. Since the Tower of Babel, they don't, languages were confounded, so they turned to symbols instead as their language. So this is what they use. And I mean, I haven't really organized this very well here, but I don't want to, go on this too much. Maybe I'll make a separate video on it. But the G in Gleason's, G is 33 from Freemasonry. They have that on the Freemason logo. A lot of numerology, JS Christopher 69, JSC 32, like the double-headed eagle 32, Shriners. You have a lot of numbers here. This college here, Modern College, if you Google it, actually we can do that now. Modern College, Blackheath. This is what we get. There is no modern college, there's just an elderly home with Masonic symbolism. Their logo here. This is what we get. So the idea that this college made in Blackheath, England, doesn't exist. I looked for it. I spent an hour looking for it, couldn't find it. Not even in history books. So this is just a fairy tale from an elderly home. Plus Modern College is MC 13.3. We see the words as is. Why have they split that here? It's because A and S is 1 and 19, so that's in the 1, 9, 11 backwards. The it is it's 1933. Scientifically and practically correct in gematria is 161, which is the gist of 9/11 flipped. I'll get in. Let me move this down a bit. Got some screenshots. So at the bottom of the map, you got 1892 is the year of production of it, which is 1892 is 9 and 11. This company here, Buffalo Electrotype and Engraving, they aren't actually a map maker. They make one other map, which is this one here, which I think was just, they made a second map just to give legitimacy to the first map, when the first one was just a fake as well. This logo here is riddled with numbers. You have the 13 here, weird point sticking out, 13. You have 666, 666 again here. You have the 666 here, 666 here, 666 right here. You have the 9/11 digits and the year it was made. So you have the 1892 digits for the other map. You have 9/11 digits on this map as well, the second map. They only made two maps. This company, look at the map first. Well, it was found in, there's a stamp, Boston Public Library. The stamp is made on the 33 point here. Could have put it anywhere, but they put it on 33. The Boston Public Library is just a 16-minute walk from the Grand Lodge of Masons in Massachusetts. And in Boston, this is also just 20 minutes from Harvard, which is notorious for secret societies, including the Owl Club. This is, Boston Public Library, close to this. A lot of Masonic symbolism on it. It seems pretty obvious that it's just a plant by Freemasons to, push this circle map. There's a lot more here. It's called a time chart on the map. Up here we see, where is it? Well, it's on the patent, actually. You can look up the patent for it. If you search for patent Alex Gleason map, you'll find it. But Alex Gleason, 669 in Jewish gematria, 66 in Jewish reduced. It's 33 or 3 Gleasons. So you got the 33 right at the top here. Gleason map called 13 as well. Time chart adds to 93 in Jewish ordinal, which is the same as Saturn, 93. Big number for Thelema in the occult. A lot of numerology attached to the engraving company at the bottom. It's here, Buffalo Electrotype. Electrotype and Engraving is EE, which is 33 reversed. In the patent, there's the days between. I've got this in the images here. The days between the patent filing and the map being published is 10 months and 13 weeks. It's one of these. There we go. That one. And then we have another date. I can't remember what this was. Oh, it was here. Dates between date on map and patent publication date. So it's 13 months and 13 days. So they've got the 13 all over this as well. Got published. The patent was from November 15th, which is 156, which is the 156th prime is 9/11. Boston Public Library again. The most curious point on this map I found was the fact. Well, here we go. Glee sons, like the gleeful sons, which when you consider that this map, this timepiece here, which is cut off, it's 27 because it goes up here, but it looks like 33 subliminally, and it's pointed right at Mount Hermon, which is where the fallen angels came down in the Bible. That's what the significance of the 33 is. So 33rd degree latitude there and 33rd degree longitude. So it's pointing to that. the map is called the Gleeful Sons. It's like the gleeful sons of God, the gleeful fallen angels. But that's the whole other story. I didn't want to get sidetracked too much on that, but just wanted to make the point that this map is just it's just full of it. I mean, this modern college doesn't even exist. You know, you have the Order of the Eastern Star as one of the Freemasonic lodges. You got the Eastern Star here at the top, a prism, a pyramid with the eye at the top. The G, this translates to 33 in Jewish gematria, so you got the 33 right at the top. I mean, it's just, it's a very Masonic production when you look closely at it. So I'll close that down. Gleason's. So the next point I wanted to cover concerns the flat Earth being in the mainstream. So if we go on YouTube and we search for flat Earth, we'll find, well, 4 million. I think if we filter it for something else, yeah, 19 over 19 million videos. So it's this map, this model isn't exactly being censored. It's being promoted, and it's being allowed to be promoted. Anyone who's recently they've been blocking YouTube channels and censoring things. Real Truth doesn't get this much attention. Doesn't get allowed on YouTube. YouTube is Google. They would censor things, not allow 19 million views, no, 19 million videos. So if we look at flat Earth in the news. We see like Kyrie Irving, Freddie Flintoff. Kyrie Irving has the flat Earth. Flat Earth was on Sports Center. See if we got an image on that. Well, they've been discussing flat Earth. Kyrie Irving, yeah, here it is. Kyrie Irving's on Sports Center on ESPN. I mean, talking about flat Earth. The reason, and Freddie Flintoff going there as well. He's talking about flat Earth, believes the world is flat. I mean, these are celebrities. They're in the pocket of the elite. They wouldn't be speaking about this if there wasn't an agenda for it. They wouldn't be allowed, and it wouldn't be on mainstream news. You have flat Earth in newspapers like The Guardian. Flat Earth. They're talking about it. Flat Earthers are back. Flat Earthers conspiracy. I mean, it's all. It's all over. Flat Earth is in the news. And the reason why is because they've promoted the wrong model. They've got this model. They want everyone to get hyped up with the flat Earth so that when they do a meeting of the minds, so to speak, between someone like Eric Dubay and Neil deGrasse Tyson, they can easily debunk this. I mean, anyone who thinks and sits down and thinks can debunk this. If I can debunk this like this, just by looking at the sun, the speed, the stars, the sun, the southern hemisphere. I mean, there's some very easy proofs to debunk this map. And if they do it on national television, flat earthers aren't going to get ridiculed. And another element of this is I'll jump to number 16 here. You have people like Eric Dubay, who's attaching the flat Earth to the New Age movement. And you have people like Matt Boylan, from a Jesuit school. But they're attaching. Eric Dubay on his website IFERS has a lot of propaganda about Hitler being a good guy. I mean, what we're told about World War II obviously isn't true. There's a lot of lies there. But the what they've done is essentially attached Hitler lovers to the flat Earth, so that it's very easy for someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson or Bill Nye to pair Nazism with flat Earth. Then you have Jesuits like Matt Boylan playing the controlled opposition of sympathetic with the Jews, and they're playing off each other. This is how they do it. Hegelian dialect, the thesis, the antithesis, and they get the synthesis. And there's a lot of other, I don't want to get into details on these guys, but there's a lot of people pushing this map that are, trying to control the narrative. I mean, the flat Earth movement has been going for a long time, and then they come out of nowhere and just start pushing it really heavily. And if you look on YouTube, you'll see a huge peak of views a couple of years ago, when they want people to see this model. And going back to point 15, which I jumped over, you got Simpsons showing the dome. You got Champions League. You got them showing the dome here as well. You've got Under the Dome. Under the Dome. They want people to believe. This is programming. A lot of flat earthers are already aware of predictive programming, but they don't realize that, I was programmed as well. I've seen past this now. We're not under a circular spherical dome like this, like they've shown us. This is predictive programming. And the circle map in movies, flat earth in movies. We get shown these maps in Pirates of the Caribbean. I don't know. There's a lot of examples of this from movies. In Sword in the Stone. Well, they've shown the wrong one here. It's disinformation, but they want us to believe in the circle. That's why they always give us the circle in movies. And in old maps, you'll always see old maps pop up that are circular. There was one recently which got the whole flat Earth movement talking. This is narrative control. They want people to talk about the flat Earth, but they only want people to talk about this map. So that's that's what I wanted to say there. They had Mad Mike recently. Let's look at that. So this guy, you can tell from his name. See, BBC's even talking about this to check if the Earth is flat. Mad Mike. It attaches a stigma to flat earthers. He's a Mad Mike dude. A daredevil. I mean, fails, doesn't prove anything. I mean, this was just a psyop to get people talking about how insane flat earthers are. Going to shoot a rocket of himself up. It's just crazy. But anyway, moving on. I want to talk about the moon a little bit. So point 17, I'm going to cover a couple of things to do with motion of the moon, and then Book of Enoch as well. So these pictures are both taken at the same time. So when it was 11:20 a.m. in Australia, which is 10 hours ahead of Britain, when it was 1:30 a.m., one of them has a black sky behind the moon, and the other one has a blue sky behind the moon. Now, that is not possible unless there's multiple moons. This model just doesn't, it falls apart. You can't have the moon being in daylight in one place and then viewed in sunlight in another place. It can't be in two places at the same time. Obviously, this is one you're going to have to take with a pinch of salt. You'll have to call someone up who you know and trust in Australia or Britain or wherever you are, just in the southern hemisphere, northern hemisphere. Call them up, get them to take a photo of the moon at the same time as you, and you'll notice this as well. And needless to say, it's impossible for the sun or for the moon to be in two places at once, in daylight and in nighttime, darkness, on this map, like this. So that alone is just a proof, but you're gonna have to prove that one for yourself by taking photos, because this is my word. But another thing to do with the moon, so we're told that Enoch's gates. Well, let me bring that up actually, just to show you that I'm not making it up. Enoch. Let's look Enoch flat Earth. See if we can find that. So here's an example of a video of a couple of prominent flat Earth researchers, or so-called, discussing how Enoch's 6 gates would work on the circle, But when you actually read Enoch, this is nothing that, it doesn't speak about this. First of all, the sun would rise in the east and set in the western gates. This is just going around in circles. So this just when you read Enoch, you realize how this just doesn't match with it. We're given models like this, which are just equally, nonsensical. Doesn't match at all what we're shown in Enoch. By Enoch, if you read it, we're also shown pictures like this, which are, if you look at it, it's obviously photoshopped, and there's not even, Enoch is supposed to have 6 gates, 6 tracks. This has 7, so it doesn't need, and this is only over 6 months, not 9 months, 12 months. So, it doesn't. This is just not reality. This is a Photoshop. This model, these sorts of things with the 6 gates being the tracks. I mean, it just doesn't work. Looking at the moon, when we actually sit down and watch the moon. So when we actually sit down and look at what Enoch says, I'll take chapter 71 for an example. Going line by line, we can map out. I'm going to get into this in more detail in other videos. I don't want to get sidetracked too much here, but we can go line by line for April, 4th gate for 30 days, and then precisely division of 10 parts and night 8 parts. And so it spends April in the 4th gate, and it goes on and on and on here to outline every single month, and it shows the sun moving by gate. So this is, what the gates actually look like when you observe it in the sky is like this. This would be gate 1, rising in this place, gate 2, gate 3, gate 4, gate 5, gate 6, rising and, moving towards you basically on the screen. So just to give you another example here, if it's over here on one night, gate 3 for example, the next night it would jump over to gate 6. This is something you can find, outlined in chapter 72 in very, great detail. And, I'll get into this in more detail in other videos, but the point that I want to make here, and I want to stress, is that this model, the circle model for the Enoch's gates, is not what we observe. What we observe is that the sun or the moon goes back and forth every month. So it could be rising in this gate here on 1 week, and then the next week it'll jump to this gate and then back. Whereas on the circle model, the moon and the sun are going around in the spiral. They're not actually jumping back and forth. So the moon does not follow the same path as the sun. This is what we can observe in the sky by watching the moon rise. So the moon actually swings north and south, making a full swing in a lunar month and returning back to the sun's position on the new moon, which would be gate 4. This map is not the actual accurate map. The sun, however, does a similar swinging motion, but it takes a full year to complete the swing. So that's what you see here. The sun goes from gate 4 to gate 6 to gate 1 and back to gate 4. The full year, back and forth swinging. The moon does that every month. The sun does that every year. So it's very obvious when you read through chapter 71 that it's incompatible with the circle. What we're told with by these guys. I mean, I'm not meaning to call them out or anything, but what they're teaching is wrong. And if you're, I was teaching wrong stuff and I moved on, and I've spoken to these guys on Facebook. They refuse to look at what I'm showing them. So they're obviously teaching something that's that's false, even though they know about it, which should be cause for concern. But so the point I wanted to make here, just to hammer this home more, you have 6 gates going line by line. You have the 6 gates of the moon. You have 6 gates for the sun here as well. the rising of the sun. They're always on a level. I'll be going into this in more detail, but I mean, all of this text here is not consistent with this circle. This circle is a lie, and it doesn't match scriptures, doesn't match physical evidence, doesn't match what we can see. So it's just disinformation. I should cover. Oh yeah, this is the next point. So actually, on the gates, I want to show you the moon jumps here. It's like a gear system. Enoch is a technical guy. He's an engineer. His book needs to be read like an engineer. And you know, the gate jumps. It's like the 6 keys or 6 pins in a lock, or 6 gears in a car. It's electromagnetic jumps. It's a really complex clockwork system. But again, the point is that this which you can observe for yourself by watching the moon rise on the horizon, as close to the horizon as possible or over a landmark. You watch it every day, and you'll watch that the schedule matches perfectly with what Enoch says, and it disproves the idea that Enoch's gates could work on the circle map. So the next point, number 19, the moon polarity flip. You might be wondering what this is. So I'll quickly. I don't want to get into so much detail on this, but it's just a quick proof. So in Enoch outlines that in chapter 77 that the moon will flip in the last 14 days. So if you have 28 days of the moon cycle, the first 14 days, the first 14 days here, the moon won't flip. You'll watch it in the sky. It'll be pointed. Say this is, to the left here is pointing north. It'll be pointing that way at dawn as well, to the north. Whereas in the last 14 days of the moon cycle, between the full moon and the new moon, at dawn it will flip. This will happen very quickly, and you can watch this in the sky for yourself. And it's a proof that the moon would never flip on here. This sounds complicated, but this is something I'll get into more detail in another video, and you can actually observe this for yourself, and it's also inconsistent with the circle map. So there's a couple more proofs after this, but number 20 is what's known as the green flash. So I'll show you a video of this. You can see, I'll speed this up. You'll see it's go green right at the top here. It goes green. I'll slow that down. So watch here, it's going green. You see that getting green? That's to do with frequencies and how light is projected. So light's getting projected in here, as we talked about with the eclipses. And you see how it's red, orange, yellow, green? It's a different light band. So this diagram will show that quite clearly. You have the higher frequency light, yellow, orange, red, and green. So when the sun sets, it's actually changing frequency. And so this proves that the sun, as it speaks about this in Enoch as well, the sun descends on a level and ascends as well. So it's actually lowering and rising at the west and the east. So this is something we can see. In Japan, the sun goes up. You can see it below the clouds. You can see, you get this effect in the US as well, where the sun is below the clouds as well and shines on the underside of clouds. Again, sun going under the clouds in the west, going above, going up from under the clouds to above the clouds in the east. So we'll cover that a bit more in future videos, but hopefully that makes this clear. The frequency, the sun is actually getting lower on the horizon. It's changing its light, the angle it's getting projected in at, changing its frequency. This is also suggesting that light is getting refracted, transmitted through a prism of some sort. Here's a better picture of it. This proves that the sun again isn't at 3,000 miles up. It's actually going below the clouds, and it's a very visual proof you can see for yourself. In this video here, you can see that again. What's going on. You see the green here. It's getting refracted through some sort of lens or prism. But we're going to get through that in more detail in another post. So I wanted to talk about the Freemasonic logo now for a minute before I wrap things up. So you'll notice here attention to detail. What you notice here is that the square is behind the circle. So it's, in a way, it's in. The square is in the circle. I'll get into the shape a bit more later, but if we look at scriptures, in Revelation 7:11, we see, and after these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth. So the earth has 4 corners. Isaiah 11:12 also talks about 4 corners of the earth. A model that we're often given is something like this, with the 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth. The 4 winds is something that Enoch talks about, and they aren't the south. All of these are south, right? East would be around the circle, east and west would be around. So you can't have the east wind, you can't have the west wind. Whereas Enoch talks about 4 winds being the cardinal directions, east, in chapter 75. So the 4 winds, the angels holding the 4 winds in the corners like this, just doesn't make sense. So that model, it's a big write-off. So shifting our attention to Isaiah 40:22, which is often used by flat earthers to show that this circle map is correct. It states, "It is he that sits..." Let me close this. "It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in." So he sits upon the circle. If God's sitting above the dome, he's not sitting on, like, literally on the circle. So I've got an alternative, which is based on the book of Enoch, which we're going to get into a lot more, which is right here. He sits enthroned above the circle of the earth. The circle is the firmament, spherical firmament, and its people are like grasshoppers. He stretches out the heavens like a canopy, and spreads them out like a tent to live in. So this satisfies the 4 corners, and it also satisfies the circle upon which God sits. I'm going to leave you with final point, which is this. The truth in plain sight. This is actually showing our cosmology. but it's misrepresenting something right here. But that's another story. This is consistent with the multiple moons, which Enoch talks about. We have that here. The names of the sun are these: one Aries and the other Thomas. The moon has 4 names: Asonia, Ebla, Benes, and Eri. This is not something you can see in the circle model, where there's just one moon. So for people like Zen to say that this Enoch matches with the circle model, it doesn't. This is a very clear example because the moon, there's 4 moons and there's 2 suns. These are the orbs projected. But there's a lot more to be spoken about this model. But this was meant to be just a first debunking of the circle, and then we'll get into the Enoch cosmology later. So that was Truth in Plain Sight. So in conclusion, I hope you found this to be compelling. As I said in the beginning, free thinkers, listen to everything and then make up their minds when they've seen facts, new information, and I hope that this information has given you plenty to think about. So what we saw was the sun. The speed of the sun would have to change, going from inner to outer circle, and that's not observed. We saw that the sun often appears under the clouds, which is proves that it's not 3,000 miles up and circling like we're told. We saw that the sun rises in the southern-eastern direction, or from a southern-easterly direction in the southern hemisphere, which is not compatible with this map. We covered the eclipses, how we should expect more frequent eclipses, and the sky shouldn't be going black if the sun is within the dome. We saw that 24-hour sunlight in Antarctica is not possible. We covered that the ridiculousness of solar analemma, how the temperature changes from it should be consistent between, or what am I saying? The temperature between the spring and the autumn should differ because the sun is at a different height in the sky, according to the solar analemma. We also saw the temple in India, which shows that the sun is traveling straight at equinox. We discussed flights a little bit with different technology that might be used to manipulate flight routes. We saw star spins. We saw southern lights, how there's the same behavior of southern lights and magnetic effects in the skies in the southern and northern hemisphere, which suggests 2 axis points, which we'll get into in another video. We covered the UN 33 hoax code, UN flag hoax code. We saw the Gleason map is full of Masonic symbolism and numerology and gematria. We discussed why the flat Earth has gone mainstream. They're getting ready to debunk this and take flat earthers with them. Ridicule the whole flat Earth movement with the wrong map. That's why it's really important to get the right map, because when they debunk it, then flat earthers are going to be ridiculed and left standing, holding something that's easily disproved. We saw some propaganda for the dome and a map in movies and on television, which is just more indoctrination and predictive programming. We discussed the de facto leaders of the flat Earth movement and how they're steering narrative. We discussed the moon, how it's visible in light and darkness at the same time, which suggests that there's multiple moons, as Enoch would say as well, in chapter 77. We discussed how Enoch's gates are totally incompatible with this circle map. We discussed the moon polarity flip on the second half of the lunar cycle, which anyone can observe for themselves. If you watch the moon rise at 3 a.m. and 6 a.m., for example, you'll see that the moon faces a different direction. Once it's jumped, that only happens on the back 14 days and has to do with Enoch's mechanics, the mechanics of Enoch's cosmology. We saw the green flash at sunset, which shows that the moon is actually setting, which is inconsistent with the map, the circle map, with the sun. It's going round and round in circles at a consistent height of 3,000 miles. Then, just to lead into future videos, I showed you the square and compass here. how the square is actually behind the compass. So it's almost like they're saying the square is in the circle, which then led us into looking at the scriptures of the squares, which is within the circle of the earth, which is the truth hidden in plain sight, the square within the circle. And we're going to cover this in a lot more detail in future videos. So I hope you've liked this video. Hope you like it. You share it, subscribe, or don't, whatever you like. I hope you'll visit my website, which is the Narrowgate, thenarrowgateweb.com. And if you have any questions, please contact me either through the contact page on my website or drop some comments under this video. And I'll leave you with this picture again so you can have a look at that. Thanks for watching.